Oh, hi. I didn't notice you there. Welcome to our very quick history of the causes of the American Revolution. If you may remember when you took notes before, I said that one of the main causes was the French and Indian War. That was a war fought by England and France on the North American continent in which American colonists took part. Well, that war went great for England because they won. The problem was it was really, really expensive, and King George decided to help pay for that war by taxing the American colonists. Now, King George was probably right in asking for taxes because the American colonists lived pretty well and had low taxes at the time. But the problem was they weren't having it. You know, as an aside, the other problem was King George was not a very good king. He was not very bright. He was not very skilled in negotiation or things like that. And he was also part-time insane. He had a disease called pyrphoria. And this is a disease that not only made him go mad from time to time, in a rage where he would be throwing things around the palace, it also made his pee turn blue. Anyway, I can see I've already bored you to sleep with medical history of King George III. King George III did tax things for the colonists. He taxed things like glass, like sugar, and especially tea. Tea was a tax that made Americans really angry. They protested the taxes. They did things like tar and feather tax collectors and burn down taxing houses. But the real reason they were upset was because they didn't get to vote in Parliament. Parliament is England's government that shares power with the king, and they didn't have a vote there. They said it was taxation without representation. Well, this stalemate made the king send more troops to America, which made Americans even more mad. And then there was a protest event called the Boston Tea Party, where even though the British had actually lifted some of the taxes, they kept the tax on tea. Americans dressed like Indians broke into the British ships holding tea and dumped that tea into Boston Harbor. That was more than the king could bear. He closed Boston Harbor, which meant the people of Boston couldn't make a living through fishing or shipping, the main things they made their money from. And the other colonies saw that happen and they said, whoa, this is getting serious. That king and that parliament, they are really oppressing the Americans. And they started sending aid to Boston. They sent them money, they sent them supplies, and pretty soon in Boston, you had another event. Drunken Boston citizens were throwing rocks and throwing chunks of ice at the British soldiers that were there at their barracks out on guard duty. They got so pelted and so insulted by the drunken Americans that the British fired shots into the crowd. They killed 5 people and wounded 7 more, and that event was dubbed the Created using Powtoon.